My hope is that it makes what CCV does really accessible and most importantly conversational to people, that it gives them a way that they can talk about these issues with others in their circles. And I hope that people feel like hanging out with us for an hour of their week is enjoyable and a good use of their time. Well, hi again, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Narrative Podcast. Mike Andrews, Aaron Bayer, David Mahan joining you today. We've got a special episode today. We'll get to that in just a second to tell you what we're celebrating. But first thing we need to celebrate is a big day at the Statehouse yesterday. David was one hard-working man yesterday and saw a couple
one day a year. It's like Santa Claus.
I'm so tired of you guys.
Anyway, to bring us back on track as much as one can attempt to after that, the success sequence was one of the big bills that we saw get not quite across the goal line, but had some big wins yesterday with a floor vote. David, take us through the day, take us through that process and why the success sequence is such a big deal to have this passed and part of Ohio law.
Right. So those of you that have been listening for a while, you know, it's a 30-year longitudinal study, greatest poverty avoidance study ever done. Basically, if a kid graduates high school, works a full-time job in their 20s, gets married before having children, 97% of those kids, those millennials, avoided poverty. And so this is a study research that goes on every couple years, and they went from a cohort of about 9,000 kids and still ongoing with 3,000. So this is major work that has been done, and we just passed a bill that would mandate that instruction to all public school kids, and so it's required for graduation. And man, it was a hard road. I mean, it got jammed up in the House. You know, we had some great folks come in and help us. Ian Rowe, Brad Wilcox came in, it was a hard road. So we were kind of upset, right? We looked at the list, and we didn't see SB 157 at the above the black line, which means it's going to be on the floor. It was way below the black line, and it was lower than it was yesterday. And we're like, okay, we thought we were about to get this done. And literally, guys, I didn't even share this with you. I'm sitting by the window. I've got my phone in my hand, and I just say, Lord, you can do anything. You can do anything. I was starting to get discouraged. My phone buzzes in my hand. I'm praying, so I didn't want to look down. I just keep praying. And when I get done praying, I see something on my phone that says it got amended in to another bill. And so, unfortunately, I didn't answer God's text. But thankfully, thankfully the bill gets in, and we'll take the win, even though it's not SB 156. The entire bill got amended into another bill, so we're good. Praise God.
And this is just how the sausage gets made at the Statehouse. And again, I sitting in that building across the street from the Statehouse, this is just one more reason why the Lord put us there. Like, there are literally hundreds of bills that get introduced and get debated, thousands upon thousands of topics that get discussed. And something like this, what's important about the success sequence here is, and I know this sounds a little bit cynical to say, no one's making money on passing the success sequence, right? So there's not high-paid lobbyists down there pushing things. There's very, very low-paid lobbyists.
That's right.
Incredibly low-paid lobbyists.
Underpaid. I like that.
Underpaid lobbyists that are but
y'all gonna start appreciating me, right?
Take a day like yesterday, right? This is likely to be the last day. So we're recording this on a Thursday, so this was Wednesday. Wednesday is likely going to be the last day that the members are all there until after the election. And all of the lobbyists who have clients on the hook are freaking out about our bill's got to get passed. And so who's making sure these things, and I'm not even going to necessarily suggest all the things the high-paid lobbyists are pushing for are bad, but something like this, how do you actually make sure it gets over? Well, it's people like David Mahan and Ryan Foles, our legislative liaison, being at the Statehouse nonstop, texting the members. David's texting me to text the members. Like
At
it's
5:30 in the morning.
5:30 in the morning saying, "Hey, make sure it gets on the floor. Make sure it gets on the floor," and then also covering it all in prayer. And yeah, just a really a powerful win.
Yeah, can't share a lot of details on this, but as of about a couple months ago, this bill was dead, and we were all praying as a staff, and we go in every morning, in prayer, and this was one of the heavies that was on our heart to get across the finish line, and everything was good. I mean, we had all the votes coming out of the Senate into the House. We knew we had the votes, but things got kind of jammed up, and it was a misunderstanding, I think, and thankfully we got that cleared up, and so this is a win for Ohio families for sure.
And it's, again, shout out to Senator Al Catrona, the sponsor of the bill. It got amended into Senator Christina Rogner's bill in the Senate, which is another great champion. And ultimately, Speaker Matt Huffman, who gets this, right? He understands why these things matter. He understands why the success sequence matters. He's someone who's been a big champion for us on school choice, but he understands the public schools still play an important role. And so the fact that he did this, I will say too, though, Dave, you and I haven't talked about this, but there's something fitting about the success sequence passing this week out of the Statehouse after what happened both in Toledo and Bexley over the weekend, where you had these festivals, these summer festivals, taken over by a whole bunch of kids, and riots break out and fights break out and all these types of things. And I will guarantee most of those kids who got involved in all that violence did not have a married dad at home.
Yeah, I actually text my kids. I told them, I said, make sure your cars are locked up. You're not leaving stuff out because, people, the schools are shutting down. And I told you, the more broken the family becomes, the more schools become like childcare, daycare centers. And when you shut down the daycare centers, it's a whole lot of playing going on in the streets. And, you start seeing all the car break-ins on the news and things like that. And so, yeah, this is very important. For our Hope in the Future initiative, this is one of the critical prevention pieces, as well as, our fetal development piece, for the narrative for the next generation to change.
Well, and it's to me, it's one of those things, Dave, where it's like, every time, and I got so frustrated after seeing the Bexley stuff, because you've got Columbus City Attorney Zach Klein, it shouldn't be this way. You've got Mayor Ginther talking about it shouldn't be this way. The NAACP is talking about, we need a task force to figure out, and it's like,
let's march in the streets. Yeah,
right. You need married moms and dads.
That's right.
Honestly, it's at the end of the day, you need a culture that celebrates what God instituted to raise up children in the way they should go. And again, if the Bible doesn't do it to you, look at the social science data that we put out with Brad Wilkins.
I don't know if you guys are watching the hearing, because I know it looks like you guys are on vacation right now. But when I'm in that session room and they're talking about the amendment into Rogner's bill, it's like, we're putting in the success sequence, just a couple bullet points, on the floor before the vote. And you had like multiple Democrats talking about how dangerous this amendment was, right? That we're going to teach kids, dangerous, literally. And it's hilarious. Me and Ryan are sitting up there in the peanut gallery, and all the members are looking up at us like, what is going on? They're texting me crazy stuff. It was absolutely hilarious. But according to what you're saying, right, with all of the Bexley and all this, the people getting shot and stuff getting broken in, that's dangerous.
Well, one other bill that I know we wanted to cover, some voter ID changes coming to Ohio. And Aaron, what do you know about that bill and how it's going to affect Ohio elections?
Yeah, I mean, this was a pretty big deal. And the first thing is that this was actually a constitutional amendment that the General Assembly referred to the ballot for this November. So voter ID will be on the ballot this year. And a lot of what is in this amendment is sort of codifying or is putting into the state constitution the existing state law around voter ID, right? We did a voter ID law in Ohio a few years ago. But what the big addition to this and what kind of slowed it down for a minute, and shout out to a lot of the conservatives in the General Assembly that pushed for this, that said, hey, we have to fix the mail-in ballot loophole. Right? Senator Catrona was on that. oh goodness me, Ron Ferguson was on it. A number of conservatives all over were very excited about this idea of having a constitutional amendment on voter ID. But hey, they said we got to fix this loophole in the law, which is if you vote by mail in Ohio right now, you don't have to provide an ID. Now, what's important about that is our vote by mail process in Ohio is better than what you see like in California, where they just ship ballots out, right? Unprompted. They literally just send ballots. If you are a resident there, they're sending you a ballot, right? That's how you get what happened to Spencer Pratt in the LA mayor race. That's not how it goes here. You have to be a registered voter. You have to send and request an early ballot, and then they mail it to you, and then you send it back. So it's more secure than what they have in like these blue states. However, that's still a problem. You're still able to vote without verifying your identification. And so they pushed for a requirement on voter ID on mail-in ballots, and they got it. And now that was passed out of the House, passed out of the Senate all at once, and that's going to be on the ballot this November. And it is really, again, big picture for Ohio. This is putting us towards the front of the pack on secure elections, and is going to be an important thing for folks to turn out and vote yes on coming November.
If you've got something to say, we want to help you say it. Hi, I'm Vince Tornero. Since 2018, Westler Media has been helping churches, organizations, and events amplify their message online. Thinking about starting a podcast, need help with social media or video? My team and I produce thousands of hours of audio and know how to create the content that will get the views, clicks, and shares that you are looking for. We just so happen to produce the narrative too, by the way. So if you're interested or just want to ask questions, get in touch. WestlerMedia.com. That's WESSLER Media.com.
Pastors today are constantly pressured to stay out of politics, even as their congregations face confusing cultural issues that can only be navigated with solid biblical wisdom. Hi friends, Nick Spencer here, Director of CCV's Tom Menery Fellowship for Cultural Engagement. The Tom Menery Fellowship helps pastors understand the times and shepherd their churches with foundational truths from Scripture. This program brings pastors together in regional cohorts where they gain biblical insight, practical guidance, and the confidence to speak wisely into today's unique challenges. Ohio pastors can join a community of leaders committed to courage, clarity, and connection. Learn more and apply today at MeneryFellowship.org or click the link in the show notes for more information.
June 9th of 2021 was the first time that the narrative dropped an episode, and here we are 5 years in. So
Who
we
was
wanted
our
to
guest on that one? Were you able to see? I couldn't even. I wasn't able to see who our first one.
I did not look at that.
We'll ask producer Vince or Joe if they can look at it and just text it over to me. But sorry, I didn't mean to derail you there.
No, all good. But we've had over 150 episodes. We've had over 90,000 listens in those 5 years, and wow, what a run it's been. And Aaron, I'm just curious before we get started into kind of the topic and how we're going to break this down, but what was on your mind? And David, you too, because you were the OGs of this. What was on your mind when you started 5 years ago? Do you think you ever make it to this point?
Well, that was the hope. Doing a podcast, at least for me, was something that I'd always wanted us to do. But it was one of these things that if we were going to do it, we wanted to make sure, one, it was genuinely contributing to the conversation in a useful way. And two, we were doing it sustainably, right? That this was something that we were going to commit to, because a lot of times, when you start a podcast, that first year, maybe 2 years, like it's a real slow ramp up. It's hard slogging. And so I wanted to, make sure that we got that we were committed to it. But the bigger thing with it was, and the whole reason why we called the thing the narrative, was, and it is for all of you faithful listeners to the narrative, there's nothing that gets David Mahan other than citing random folk bands. There's nothing that gets Mahan more upset than the media. And we wanted to create a place to counter media narratives, right? Where the media is saying this, what's the truth? And that's where we want to start. And we just, thanks Joe and Vince for texting this over. I think it could not be more fitting. On David, guess who our first guest was?
We talked about him recently.
None other than Bob Woodson.
He was first.
He was our first
right.
guest on the narrative,
Right.
which is just an honor for us to. It's because of that, Dave. We got to get that picture of you. Isn't there a picture of you and Bob Woodson and JD at an event in Cincinnati?
Yeah. Yes.
We got to get that picture up in the podcast studio because that's just to honor Bob Woodson for his legacy and being our first guest. That's a big deal.
You know, I remember way back then, and this is back when, I don't know if you remember, we had lunch on 4th Street. And
we used to have lunch. Now David's too big time to see.
Oh, whatever. We used to do breakfast and stuff. Now you take me nowhere. But we
It's because he's embarrassed to be seen in public with you, David. That's the reason.
That's true.
Listen, the only real voice I had, right? I was speaking in schools, so the only real voice I had was on Facebook. So every time an issue would come up and I had to vent, I would go on Facebook. I was one of those guys. And when you asked me, you know, to do the narrative, I thought, man, what an opportunity to get some really good voices out there, including Bob Woodson, right? You know, some of these strong conservative Black voices, myself included.
Most important, as in all things, David.
But I mean, seriously, what an honor it was. I remember how I felt getting up from that table. That an opportunity like this would come across, and you know, that's 5 years ago. So praise God.
Well, in honor of our 5 years, we're just gonna rip through kind of 5 questions, just round table discussion, round robin. Everybody take a turn and share some of your thoughts. We're gonna start off with who are some of your favorite guests or topics that we've covered on the show?
I mean, just like I kind of alluded to, I think it's very rare to hear strong Black conservatives in conservative radio or conservative news. And so, you know, the Delano Squires, to watch him come up, you know, and his voice get strengthened. I mean, Bob Woodson, oh my goodness, right? Old school civil rights guy, but then Ben Carson, right? I mean, I think we had to speed him up like 1.5 times. But such a powerful, deep well.
At the minute David starts talking, like Dr. Carson listens by closing. He genuinely is listening. That's the thing about him, is that he's not made for radio. He's made for academia and being a doctor. And so you start talking and he closes his eyes because he's processing he's genuinely thinking about what you're saying. And you're like, do you just fall asleep? I mean,
I just run over there and check his pause. But
I'm going to use that in some CCV meetings from now on.
Yeah, right?
I'm listening.
The wisdom was phenomenal. And then Will Riley. I mean, how fun are those interviews with Will? And we end up having to bleep out half his stuff.
Where the producers earn their keep.
The dude is brilliant. But those are probably some of my favorites.
Mike, you go next. I want to hear what you think, man. You've been
Mike,
how long have you been on now? 3 years?
Yeah, a little over 3 years. So yeah, I've only been here for part of it, but I think the ones that stand out to me are some of the people who were really influential in my thinking, like a John Stone Street, a Del Tackett. I know this was a little bit obscure, but Alexandra DeSanctis is somebody who was really helpful in forming a lot of my thoughts around the pro-life issue. So getting to talk to her a couple years ago was a highlight for me. And Senator Josh Hawley, when we got to interview him, he's a guy that I've watched on the Senate floor for a number of years, and the opportunity to speak with him was a real honor. And that was a fun interview too, even though it wasn't specifically about his work as a senator. It was about a book on fatherhood that he had written. That's one that's up there for me.
Yeah, I got a number of them that I've just loved. I mean, one of my just favorite episodes that, again, thinking about the original purpose of this podcast, was Ben and Evans Nwankwo, when we had those guys on.
Yeah.
Right. That was such a gift, because that you go listen to that interview, and that was content and news and information that you literally won't get anywhere else. Because here are two just private citizens, businessmen, that by the grace of God I've gotten to know just through our work at CCV, but are from Nigeria, Christians in Nigeria who still have family in Nigeria, who long to be back in Nigeria. And to be able to get that real on the ground story that breaks apart every narrative you see in the press, right? And to see that it's not often just in the world of podcasting, it's the dream situation where you get that raw emotion, and you just get it's what this medium allows for better than anything else. Because on radio, on TV, you're on the clock. You've got to sort of be. I've hosted radio programs a few times, and obviously I've done a lot of radio interviews. Everyone's always kind of looking at the clock, looking at when the segment ends, because you got to get to that next ad. On podcasts, you just get a lot more time to let the conversation breathe. And that interview we did with Ben and Evans, we just really got to it's one of the things I'm most excited about with the studio. Is this is such a you guys have done such a great job of creating a comfortable environment in here, that the more we do this and bring folks in, we can kind of have those discussions. I'll tell you, the other two though that really stuck out to me are when we had Jared Horvath Cooney on, and he was talking about tech and policy. Like, that was one.
Yeah, that was huge.
Yeah, like just so much data information that has stuck with me and has helped form my thinking. That was awesome. And then I loved the Daniel Gordis interview we did about sort of 2 years after October 7th in Israel.
Mm-hmm.
And again, just here's a guy, not a Christian. He kind of reminded me. He's our Jewish Will Riley, right? So he's gonna not someone who's like aligned with us on the faith level, aligned with us primarily on most issues, but is just giving us a perspective. I didn't want the narrative to be a safe podcast where you're just going to come and hear the same Christian talking points again and again and again. We wanted to bring up like, hey, Christians, let's challenge ourselves and go outside our normal comfort zone to hear from voices and have conversations so we could better understand the world God created.
Well, what about some behind the scenes moments, either, our dynamic or maybe some guest interactions that our audience wouldn't know about if we didn't share? And
we actually hate each other. I don't know if folks realize we don't speak. Like it's like one of those like 1990s news shows where like the hosts are on air and they're bantering. Literally, as soon as we cut, we don't talk. I don't know if folks realize that.
We gotta be careful, because sometimes people will come into the office. I'll see folks on the street and they'll be like, "I am so sorry that they treat you so bad."
True.
I'm like, it's really not that bad. Like,
I'm gonna come back to that. I got that as an answer for another question, but no, I think it's what you're saying is exactly right. Like the dynamic off mic is exactly the same as it is on. Like, there's a lot of good natured ribbing between us. I remember one time, I can't remember what you said, David, but we were about ready to record, or maybe we had started recording, and you said something that just like ended the episode. Like we had to stop and start over again because it was so off the wall.
We record at the end of long days.
Oh man.
Right. And it's like you literally have to laugh to keep from crying sometime. And you just get in here and we just start clowning. And sometimes I wish they would just hit record, but then I'm thinking, we'll probably get arrested. Like, it's probably not good.
That is the truth. Like I mean, even on days like today, we get in here and we're all real quiet for a minute because we're just like having to shut off. We all got full-time jobs and families and all that kind of stuff, and like that little bit of transition of like, okay, I got to turn off whatever issue we were dealing with. And jump on this is such a big deal.
There was one time, I don't know if you were here, Mike. We went to Congressman Jim Jordan's house.
Yeah,
and,
that was just within a few weeks of having
when
started.
You first got here. Okay, so,
I drank the rest of his apple cider, and
that's right.
So stinking rude. I don't know why I love that.
So bad.
That was some really good apple cider, but I don't know why that stuck out to me so much. But you see these guys on TV, and you think you know them, but you don't. But man, the guy just comes in from cutting the grass, old farmhouse. His wife greets us with apple cider and whatever else.
He asked for some, and she's like, "Oh, I just gave it to him."
Gave it to the new guy, and here's Jim Jordan, who I've seen on the news just tearing people apart, and I'm holding the last of his apple cider.
Yeah,
that he
nice.
has.
You know, and literally, I'm like, we're just kind of talking as we were setting up, and I asked her about hunting and all of that. And she literally said I can hunt in her husband's deer stand that fall. But I don't know, just having that conversation in that setting, just raw, it helped me to kind of understand and give some grace to some guys that you think but you really don't.
Yeah.
And I had one other one that really stands out as far as guest interactions go. When we interviewed Chloe and Prisha over at our old office,
Oh my goodness.
after we wrapped, I remember Chloe stood up and grabbed a dry erase marker and just started doodling on our whiteboard. And I was like, man, this is truly just a teenage girl. Just the way that she was drawing reminded me so much of one of my daughters. And it was just, the interview itself was powerful, but that moment just like really landed with me about what she'd been through. And even now, seeing how strong her voice has become, I keep seeing that moment in my head.
In this work, and I do a lot of work in this detransitioner space, gender ideology space, all over the country. I would have to say, Mike, that was probably the best interview to get the heart of what these kids are going through and what this industry is doing to exploit their vulnerabilities. That was a powerful. They just got done coming over, testifying. Folks wanting to spit on them, folks wanting to trip them, and then they come right into the podcast studio. That's powerful. If you've not seen that, family, you gotta check that out.
And of course, it's one I wasn't there, so that's your favorite. That's good.
There is that aspect too. So Aaron, you alluded to this one already, but are there specific episodes or moments that stand out to you as exemplifying what the narrative is or should be all about? And this is where I did have the Jared Cooney Horvath interview for me, like just unpacking an issue that's not being discussed in ways that are really practical and tangible, and being able to share that episode around as like, hey, have you considered this? I thought that was a good one. And I also had the Emma Waters interview that we did on IVF, which is one of those kind of technical things, and everybody, in the interest of being nice, doesn't really want to talk about it. But that one I thought brought so much good information and biblical perspective to a hot button issue that it just hit the mark for me.
Yeah, no, I had a whole bunch here that ties it. I mean, Dave, this is where I had all the Will Riley ones, right? What for all of the jokes and everything Will does that makes him so entertaining. His actual research, what makes him different than everyone else, is that he's got such good data to unpack. And I feel like if there was like one of the big things that I think that has been a positive in America, especially on the conservative movement, is we've taken the venom out of the left's attacks. So you have things like the SPLC calling groups a hate group, right? That used to be, saying you're anti-LGBT used to be such a shut down phrase that the left would use. And in the same way they'd use that with racism, right? Where if you question what's going on in corporate America, or you question even what's going on, you say kids need a mom and a dad, or that kids do best if you follow the success sequence, right? The left accuses you of racism, right? And having somebody like Will Riley that has receipts unpacking that, really, that to me was, I remember in those interviews, this is why we do this. But I had a couple other ones. One, Claire Morrell, when she was doing the tech exit, and again, talking real practically. That's one of the things when we say CCV is not a think tank, we're a do tank. Like, here's actually how we should live with this tech. I thought that was so good. And then the other big one for me was when we had Senator Bernie Moreno on right after the passing of the One Big Beautiful Bill, the signing of the One Big Beautiful Bill, I should say. And all of the media very clearly got their talking points on this was cutting people's Medicaid. right? That the one big beautiful bill was destroyed, and there's going to be bodies in the streets. Now, mind you, look around right now, nobody's in the streets. But again, having a place where Senator Moreno could come on, talk directly, primarily to an Ohio audience, but also to a national audience, about here's what the bill actually does, and here's all the lines, and not be constrained to a 3-minute, segment on CNN is just so powerful for what we're trying to do here.
Yeah, for me, when I think of narratives that exemplify what we do on the podcast, I don't know where else you're going to get information specific to the Ohio Statehouse like you get on the narrative. I mean, I listen to a lot of radio stuff and, different, but some of those guys even call us, right, to say what happened today, right? Unless you're in that room, in those rooms, those hearing rooms, the chambers, the hallways, so much happens in the hallways with guys just meeting. You really don't know what's going on. And what I'm hearing from our guests when I see them out and about is that they appreciate how that raw Ohio news flavor that we give the state of Ohio.
Well, let's talk audience or listener feedback. What are some of your favorite interactions you've had with our fans or feedback you've received from them?
You mean the Mahaniacs?
Oh,
is that what we're talking about now?
We're still doing
So
that.
that is exactly what I wrote down, and I want to go back to this piece about how they always ride to your rescue. And my standard line is like, you guys have no idea what a troll David is around the office.
I love
like,
you.
Oh yeah, that's exactly.
Love y'all, Mahaniacs.
Like he has no, they have no idea what we put up with Monday through Friday, and then for an hour we give it back, and it's like, you guys are so mean to David.
I'm standing in front of the staff, like trying to lead us in prayer or devotion or something, and I look over at Dave's face, and he's just like eyeballing me and like making. And I just waiting for like the little comment that's just going to derail everything. So don't feel bad for the man. Like this is just
Listen, you are
a biblical
appreciated. That's all I'm
principle of
saying, guys.
reaping
Yeah.
and sowing, and that is just what plays out on the Narrative
Love
podcast.
Yeah. No, well, I'll just say, one, we have an incredible board of directors at CCV. And I know a number of them listen to the podcast. Our board chairman, Al Caperna, is always so encouraging and is, giving feedback and thoughts and that, like, again, that's the kind of thing we want to do, is be a blessing and entertaining to the folks that listen. I will say a CCV longtime supporter and friend. I got to call out Marilyn Wood down in Cincinnati. She's been a good friend, and I know she's regularly listening. So getting that, those are the types of things where it's friends like those that, especially when I started at CCV, were so encouraging, and then I just don't get to see that often anymore. And so she was at the building commissioning, and it just, the fact that this gives us a way, at least in some way, to stay in touch with friends that have been supporters of the ministry for so long. But then my funniest listener feedback, and this technically falls into this category because someone listened and gave feedback, was Dan Balthrop from the City Club on stage there, where he said, "You said on a podcast that you wanted to destroy the public schools. Is that true?" And I said, yes.
That's why I said it on a
listening.
podcast.
On a podcast. It's all of those things. Like my actual favorite listener feedback is when there's the left listening to the podcast and they take our clips and they try to post them online and say, look how terrible these people are. And I'm like, yes, that's what we think. Thank you for helping us spread the word.
Yeah, thank you for taking a clip from our show and making it,
And amplifying it.
yeah, putting it on your YouTube channel. Like, yeah, we said that. All right, well, we're
Like and share. That's the sorry.
Exactly. Mash that like button.
Yeah.
We're at our fifth and final question. So how have you guys seen the narrative affect CCV's mission or your work personally?
I want you to start on this one, Mike, because as our comms guy, like you're the one that's seeing how this, this content is being used and reaching folks. And what's your take, man?
Yeah, well, my hope is that it makes what CCV does really accessible and most importantly conversational to people, that it gives them a way that they can talk about these issues with others in their circles. And I hope that people feel like like hanging out with us for an hour of their week is enjoyable and a good use of their time. Like that's kind of my hope for it. But I think really where I land on this, Aaron, is just personally, I can't understate the impact that the narrative has had on me. And it's because it was my intro to CCV. When I first heard of the organization, one of the first things I did was listen to those early episodes with you and David, and never in my wildest dreams did I imagine I would be part of this show. And I can't help but be extremely grateful for the opportunity to work with you guys, to know you as friends and coworkers, and two guys that I really look up to. And so I'm just so thankful to be part of this, and it definitely changed the entire trajectory of my career, because I did not have this on my bingo card, but the Lord did, and I'm so grateful.
You're welcome, Mike. You're very welcome.
Take a compliment for two. We have so there's actually a timer in the studio where if a moment is too kind or sweet, for somebody has to break it. So thanks.
It's a problem of mine.
Yeah.
I would say, those interactions, I get to sometimes get away from the Statehouse, and I get, to the communities and things. And when folks say stuff like, I don't know you personally, but I recognize your voice, right? We know the passion that goes into producing these podcasts. We know the passion that goes in to try to fulfill this mission. And when people say, I recognize your voice, or I knew nothing about this issue before I listened to this podcast, or man, it was a tough day. Keith Hurt, the other day was at the gym working out, and he said, he heard us say something funny about Mike, and he said, I just laughed out loud. Being being able to kind of expand not just the mission, but the voice of God through this podcast to other folks. And then when they begin to say the same things about this voice, or about an issue, and they feel like they can now engage in being a part of a solution around an issue, those are my favorite pieces of what we get to do here.
Yeah, I think, one of my absolute favorite things is when we get to do like special sort of rapid response episodes. Some of those episodes we've had Maria on with us, getting to just go deep into something that just happened and unpack it. Like those are the times where a lot of times it's just us, or it's us and Maria or whatever, and we're just taking what the Lord's taken us through in this. And that's been such a gift in our work. And the other thing is, both the narrative and then the Essential Summit, which you can buy your tickets now at this essentialsummit.org.
Nice plug.
Thank you. I'm a professional. There's so much. I can't begin to describe all that happens in this building and on this team every day, every week.
Man.
When we do every year, at the end of the year, we'll do we do this exercise called Great is Thy Faithfulness, with the team, and we list out all of the things that were accomplished in that year. And we literally fill up every whiteboard, of just what the Lord has done. And quite frankly, we don't get to share what's happening in probably 80% of what the Lord's doing at CCB, just because there's limited time. And so both at the Essential Summit and here, it's not so much like, hey, look at what CCB is doing. It's look at what the Lord's doing in the world, and how he's using his people to advance his kingdom. And the narrative just gives us that opportunity to get deeper into some of those issues, right? Like, we haven't talked about the Tom Minery Fellowship for Cultural Engagement here in probably in years since we launched it. And there are I think there's 6 cohorts of pastors all over the state that are meeting monthly to unpack the cultural issues of the day, and it's content that Chris Lightfoot and Nick Spencer are putting together to help pastors preach about the issues of the day more knowledgeably and wisely, right? I mean, how often have you heard someone say, "Oh, if pastors would," well, that's something that's just happening here that we don't ever really get a chance to talk about because there's so many other things that the Lord's doing. And so, getting to unpack issues, getting to unpack what's happening has been such a blessing of this platform.
Well, and it doesn't happen without a whole lot of people behind the scenes, and it's a good time here at the 5-year mark to thank Vince Tornero and his team at Wessler Media for their production assistance, and certainly a lot of people on my team. Claire Dyson, Libby Patrick helps with scheduling. Joe Swiger is normally in the tech booth with us on a lot of these recordings. And, if you want to go way old school, Grace Rose, who's one of the initial podcast assistants. And so a lot of people have put in time behind the scenes to make this go. And got to thank the audience too. Like, none of this happens if we don't have people that want to listen to this. So thank you to all of our listeners out there as well. It's been a fun run.
A lot more to come, and this late summer, early fall, there's some big things that are going to be happening with podcasting and content with CCV. We're going to be consistently, every episode is going to be on video soon, and you'll get to see this incredible podcast studio that the Lord has provided for us. Big things to come. Can't wait to share those things as they start to roll out.
Yeah, stay tuned for more, as they like to say. Well, guys, it's been a pleasure as always. Thanks for letting me be part of the ride here as we hit this 5-year mark, and here's to 5 more years on The Narrative. Thanks everybody for listening. You probably have some homework to go back and catch some of the episodes and guests that we mentioned. You can find that in our podcast feed, and we'll look forward to being back again with you next week here on The Narrative. Thank you for tuning in to this episode of The Narrative, presented by CCV and produced by Wessler Media. If you found today's episode insightful, leave us a review or rating and subscribe anywhere you get your podcasts. We're your hosts, Mike Andrews, Aaron Baer, and David Mahan, and we'll see you next time on The Narrative.